is our coalition meeting for the month, the Matsu Business Coalition. So we have these meetings monthly. You guys know this because you've all been, but the purpose of it is to create a business community where we can help each other solve problems that business owners all have. So we've obviously experienced a lot of disruption in the past few years as businesses, and so it's a lot of new things to have to try to work through to be able to be successful. So I'm Jenny Willardson. I'm a commercial real estate broker here in the Valley, and I started this to be able to help my clients because I hear these issues all the time. Mm-hmm. So our panelist today is Miss Maggie Rogers with Good.Better.Best Consulting, and she specializes, if I'm correct, in employee engagement. Correct?
Yeah, kind of.
One of the special, yes, one of the things that you.
One of the things I do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought today we could kind of bring together the problems and questions that we have as employers, and we can talk through them all together. Like if anybody has good ideas or maybe some specific problems that they've come across, please participate. We would love to have your engagement as well. So first of all, think about what questions you have, and so I'll start with like a few, and then let's try to get your questions as well. Okay? So
yes.
First one, I hear this all the time, is how do I get my employees to show up to work?
They just won't even show up to engage if I wanted them to. Yeah, that's a tough one. Okay, so generally what I would start by saying is, why are they not there? And it's a hard one to know because they're gonna lie to you. They're not gonna say, well, I was up all night binge watching some show on Netflix and I just didn't want to come to work the next day. Normally, what makes your best employee come to work every day? Or what makes you come to work every day? So most of the time when we say we are coming to work is we have a reason to be there. We're engaged with what we need to do. And if we're not there, either the work isn't going to get done or we feel bad that someone else is going to pick up our slack. Generally speaking, right? Yes, and we have to pay the bills. Okay, but we all know that employees don't actually show up for a paycheck, which is weird, but it's true. They don't. So if you have a retention issue, the very first thing, not retention, but people coming to work issue, the very first thing I would look at is your frontline management. So if you have specifically if there's a group that seems to not really come to work very frequently, like they're just constantly having issues with people calling in, so on and so forth, look at the very first point of management and then start looking at that employee, the culture that manager is creating for those employees. Because generally speaking, if an employee is engaged, so they have value in what they're doing, they feel value in what they're doing, they will show up. Because that's where engagement, that's where that loyalty lies. That's where they feel bad about their team members not showing up, and so on and so forth. So the question I almost will always revert back to is look at the management. Look at that frontline manager, find out how engaged and committed the employees are to that manager. And likely you'll see that something's going on within that culture that's making people not care. Like, I don't care. I don't care if Crystal has to do all my work. I'm not showing up. F it. That's the feeling. Forget it. I'm done. I don't care. The other thing is consistency in accountability. That's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing. But you know what? Sometimes you gotta fire people, and sometimes you have to have hard conversations. And what happens is when you create a culture within a work group that, yeah, everyone gets mad at me if I don't show up, but there's no consequences for me not showing up, so I don't care about you guys anyways, so forget it, I don't care. But if you create a culture where regardless of who you are, you can be the best employee in the entire world, but if you don't show up for work, you are treated exactly the same way as the bad apple gets treated. people will start knowing that there's going to be accountability on the other side of this issue, and they'll start showing up to work. Because, I mean, they want a paycheck.
I just have a question. As far as like accountability goes, in this really tight labor market that we have, where it's like, if I fire someone, am I going to be able to find somebody to fill that spot?
Yeah.
What do you do? Is there another way to have accountability besides the possibility of them losing their job?
No. I really don't think so. The thing is that whenever you have an employee-employer relationship, it's an exchange of power and value, right? If you keep a warm body in a work group because you need a warm body and they are a bad apple, they will ruin the bunch. Your best employee would probably rather do that person's job than have to deal with that person on a day-to-day basis, right? But accountability isn't always taking your employee and throwing them out the door, right? It's about consistent expectations. Yes, sometimes it does result in a really hard conversation of, look, this, but when you have an employee who's consistently not at work, you have to open up the thought that there may be something going on that's making them not come to work. Now, it's not any of your business, but how it affects the work group is your business. It's a very fine line you're walking when you have to deal with employees in general. But if you are consistent with your employees and with the expectations and how you handle your employees perform better, because people like structure. We thrive in structure. And so if they know what the expectation is, they know that if they don't show up, they will be terminated. And I know it sounds awful, but especially with people not showing up for work, if you don't hold the person accountable, what does that say to the person who comes to work every day, all day, and is always consistent? Who do you appreciate? Do you appreciate the employee that's showing up, or are you just so afraid that you won't have a warm body to fill a seat? It's rough. I mean, as an employer, that is a hard decision.
Right,
to make.
and think about the time you're taking to think about and how I can work on this, and when if it falls down to it's just them, they're just a bad employee. Again, you're spending all your time trying to focus and trying to figure this out where you could be developing other people, right? Yeah, I get that they might not be there, but what's the point? I mean, you're wasting your time. You're spinning your wheels. Like if you've gone through everything like, hey, these are the standards, you're not meeting them, please try to do this. What do you need from me to help out with that, right? Like go through the whole gambit. And then once you've done that, I mean, sometimes it just falls on the person.
Yeah. I mean, you have to make sure that when you're holding employees accountable, they are expected. I mean, it should never shock an employee. Anytime you write up an employee, anytime you terminate an employee, it should never be shocking for them. An employee should never walk into an office and go, I was not expecting that to happen. Like that, what? I mean, the best way you terminate an employee is for the employee to turn around and apologize for putting you into the position of having to terminate them. That's the best outcome of a termination. It's not common, but if you can get to that point, that means that you have done every step to get them to that point, and you've gone the mile and they just couldn't get there for whatever the reason is. But no accountability should ever be surprising, and if it's surprising, then the management hasn't done a good enough job expressing what it is that the expectation is, right? So if you have an employee who's not showing up for work, they should know, okay, well, when I come back to work, I'm gonna get called into the office, this is the first time this semester, or whatever it is that you guys, your policy is, but they're held accountable to it and they know that. So it's not shocking. It should never shock anybody. They should be like, yep. When you say, can you come into my office? They're like, I'll get my pen ready. I'm ready. I know, I'm ready. That's how that interaction should work out. But we are in a tight labor market. That is true. But I don't think that employees should have to suffer because of the tight employee market. And those good employees, they're the ones that are suffering from it. They'd rather that person not be there. They're doing their work anyway. I mean, they're doing it anyway. It's better for them to know every day I'm coming in and doing this, opposed to That's how profound the words were. But I literally sucked. I sucked the energy out of the room. So profound, you guys. But yeah, so it's don't get sucked into the warm body theory, because it's not worth it. It's better for them to know what to expect when they're walking in the door. It's going to be a heavy workload because we're recruiting, and be actively recruiting, because that's just awful, because they hate you if you are like, we know we're shorthanded. I promise we'll hire someone soon. That's garbage. Like, we interviewed like 15 people and we couldn't get one of them. But it's better for them to know what to expect and walk in and be like, oh look, Sally's not here today. Who's picking up her slack? Like, that's awful. So anyway, that's what I have to say about that.
Anyone have anything?
No, it's
Any
spot on.
question?
No, I've worked in places where I was that hard worker and I was tired of it, and I made a lot of money, but it wasn't worth it, and I bowed out. And I started my own business, so. But you know, it's just hard to let them go if they're not picking up the slack. It's not worth it.
Yeah, it can be quite exhausting being the good employee, and then you're expected to pick up the slack, and you're like, what the hell? But we know that you can do it because you're so good. We're not going to pay you anymore. We're so good at what you're doing. Just help us out for the next 6 months. That turns into 2.5 years.
There's a pizza party.
We're going to promote you. It's lateral. You don't make any money, but man, you get a better title on a card. Yeah. I think that, the whole not having people to hire, I think, I probably haven't done enough research to really, this is completely opinionated, okay? But I think that the labor's there. Like, there are people to hire, right? But I think that what we're seeing is this generational shift of people not being okay with the status quo we've created and what a workplace is going to be like. So like, people are not okay with being treated like crap anymore. They're just not okay with that. The suck it up buttercup, we gotta get the job done, is not an appropriate way to lead people anymore. And when you've got these young millennials and these new Zers coming out, they've been told that they don't have to deal with that. You don't have to be mistreated. I mean, they're the generation of mental health. We didn't really have that. I'm an old millennial, so like, we didn't really have, it's kind of started in our generation, but we didn't really have that. Like, you went to the school counselor to change your grade, like your classes. You did not go to the school counselor to be like, I had a rough day yesterday. I'm like, I need, right? Am I right? Yes. Okay. That's, school counselors started as in the millennial generation. It was the outcome of Columbine, was school counselors. But when we got them, we were all like, oh yeah, okay, like, I hate this math teacher. I'm gonna go change my grade. My kid, who's a Zier, she's like constantly at this, she's like, I had a bad day. I'm like, so you went, like, it's bizarre. You went and talked to the counselor? She's like, yeah, that's what they're there for. I'm like, are they? Is that really what they're supposed to be?
Well, and people have options too. I don't have to take.
Yeah, I don't have to.
Where back in the day, I'd have to figure out what businesses are around me. Yeah. Right? Now I can just go online.
Like,
what do we got? There's like a million different websites I can go
Yes.
to that shows me every single job that's out there. I can go to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Jobs.
Yeah, you say,
Right?
I'm looking for a job, and you got headhunters going out looking
Right,
for
so
you.
I don't have to take it where you had to take it basically back in the day because these were your options. Now it's the whole wide world.
Yeah, you can do anything, you're right.
Right.
So now, companies have to up their game.
Yeah.
They have to. I really love, I love this change because I think that it is important that we get to a point where the followers of the world are forcing this leadership to change.
I
Right?
agree with that.
And so social media was the rise of followers. Like, before, it was really hard to get followers unified enough to make social change. I mean, when did we see this before? It was the rise of the union. Okay, like the bringing on of unions, that was really where we saw followers being able to band together to make the change necessary to get companies to recognize them as people, right? We're seeing that pendulum swing to the next side where our followers are now able to unify and get onto social media and completely bring down a company. Because they can.
For better or worse.
For better or for worse. They can either make you gold or make you impoverished. Like, the follower is it. And I like that because it really makes companies go, oh, we have to do better. We don't only have to do better because we need to be good people, good citizens of our community, but we have to do better because we won't have any employees. They will go somewhere else, right? And companies who realize that that's what it is, it's a social change opposed to I just need to throw more money at people. They realize it's a social change. Those are the ones that will come out on top. I genuinely believe that. Because that's what it is. People want engagement. They want to believe in what your company is doing, but you gotta tell them what you're doing and appreciate the value that and the power that they're giving you. That power exchange. So, anyway, that's my soapbox. Yeah.
And then also, I think even attracting employees too. I think a big issue is I mean, you go online and it's like, oh, it's a starting job. You need 20 years experience with an MBA, and like you have to know these specific like systems for this because I've never had to learn how to use an operating system before, right? Right? But why? Why does it have to be that? Like, I'd rather just have a good person than a crappy person who has all this.
Yes.
But if you don't hit these marks, HR's like, trash.
Yeah. The worst is if they're using an algorithm that doesn't even put it in front of
Right,
somebody.
yeah, and you're just playing that. So, like, you're either lying on your resume or for some random reason you worked at this company in the past and used all these things, right? So, and to me, that's a big stopping point.
Huge.
And that's something like I'm working to change where we're at is I've talked about that because I don't necessarily want to see that. Like, I'd almost rather have, okay, you have some work experience doing something and then X, Y, and Z, but really I just need a fundamentally good person.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. I can teach you the other things. I can teach you a skill.
Yeah.
I've had that discussion many times with people about I don't want to hire somebody in my cleaning business that's cleaned before.
Yeah.
I don't want to retrain them. I don't want to train bad habits out. I don't want them to fight. I want a fresh slate. I want to come in and enjoy it, somebody that can learn and enjoy working.
So how do you find then those good workers? How do you screen for that when you have a pile of applications?
That is very difficult.
I know for myself, I've really enjoyed doing a working interview. I'll bring them on for half a day, pay them in cash, and just see how they work. See if they jive, see if they're interested, make sure I like them, make sure they like me.
That's really smart.
Yeah, like for us, I think, being at the credit union, I think just kind of hiring from within is a good one because I can see how these people, like I interact with them. So that's always a really good one for me. I would have a difficult time hiring from the outside. It'd be, I don't know, you'd have to do those, get those psychological trick questions to kind of figure out. Yeah, the behavioral. Like you'd have to do both. Okay, cool, you got the skills. Now let's do this behavioral interview and, kind of just ask them off the wall questions and see how they would react and think and, kind of put them in a situation like this where they have to be around people and it's still hard, but that's not telling. Yeah. I can BS my way through that, right? So yeah, it's tricky, but.
I think if you have a good plan for onboarding, because you always have that opportunity, right? You hire someone and you have your probationary period. That's if you set up like that. You have 3 months or 6 months or whatever. You have this probationary period. If you have a really good onboarding process, okay, I'm not talking about like signing the paperwork. We have all done that and watching those stupid outdated videos. I'm talking about like onboarding into the group. I think that if people take advantage of their probationary periods, most people don't. Like once they're hired, they think that they're there. They're never going to go away. But especially when you bring on a new employee, you should be checking in with that employee so regularly that they should worry about the probationary period. I mean, that should be something they should know right as they start, that there's a probationary period and we're going to work to that probationary period. I'm not saying make them fear it. I'm just saying they should know that that is a decision point and that they should be really showing their value. And you should have, if they're not skilled, right, you should be able to say, in this 6-month probationary period, this is what you should expect from me, and this is what I expect from you, and then you track that through that time. And then, as it's getting closer, you need to be asking, is this a good fit for you? Do you feel like you're fitting here? Because if I don't feel like you're fitting here, you probably shouldn't feel like you're fitting here too, right? But having those very candid conversations. Do you feel like you're fitting here? Well, I mean, I want to fit here, but the work is much harder than I thought it was going to be. And it's stressing me out. Okay, well, let's try to get over that by this way. Or let me see if there's another department. Especially you guys have that option because you have these different departments. But, is there another department that actually fits this person a little bit better? But having those candid conversations, saying like, we gave you this expectation, you didn't quite meet it. Why do you think you didn't meet it? Oh, well, I just don't understand. Like, working in a bank is like my worst nightmare. So
It's not that bad.
oh my gosh.
Here's what you do.
I have to look at numbers. That's just, if I could work in a library, that would be better there. But if I had to work in any kind of numbering, anything would just stress me out. Doing my own book stresses me out. But anyway, just being really open and honest with those new recruits, especially if you're bringing them in on personality opposed to skill. Asking them, you didn't have this skill set, typing. I don't know if that's a requirement for you guys. You didn't know how to type before you started. 6 months down the road, you're like, well, you're at your thing, but you still don't know how to type, so we're gonna let you go. Well, hold on, but did you teach them how to type, right? So if you're gonna bring someone on with a lack of the skill set you need for them to be productive in their job, then you have to have that plan to get them there. It's the plan that helps you decide if they stay or not, right? So each month I want you to increase your typing skill by 10 words per minute, and you're going to be doing that by doing this program that we have invested in, whatever it is, and I'm gonna set aside 1 hour of your work day or 2 hours a week for you to personally do that. So you're allowed to set aside 2 hours a week. However you want to do that, that shows you if they have good time management skills, 2 hours a week to increase your typing speed by 10 words per minute over the next, and so you're meeting with them every month, right? I would say every week, but that's fine. Meeting every month and you're like, you haven't gotten there yet, you've only logged 20 minutes in the last month, well, you haven't gotten there. So when you get to that 6 month and you're now going, do you feel like this is a good fit for you? They're gonna be like, well, I mean, because you didn't meet the expectation that we had set here. We set aside 2 hours a week. You're only logging 30 minutes a day, or 30 minutes a week. Time management is really important for us. Do you think that this is a good fit for me? And they're gonna say, this is probably not a good fit for me. Okay, well, let's see what we can do. Let's see if there's another department for you that fits your skill set a little bit better, and we'd love to see you come back, in another year after you feel like you have the better experience somewhere else. And this is just an example. But so when you're hiring someone, if it feels right, it's hard because you're like, yeah, I like this person. Like, we totally clicked. It was great. My gut's saying they're great. And then they walk through the door and they show up in yoga pants and obviously not appropriate.
So I was actually going to go back to what I was talking about the interview too, to even think about that. I would set the expectations and standards up during the interview.
Sure,
I would say, this is what I expect from members of my team.
Yep.
So, and then first day when they come in, I would do the same thing again. And literally sit them down and say, hey, these are the expectations and performance standards that I expect to see from you and that I expect from everyone else. And if I'm feeling you're not meeting that, you will know. Like, we will have a conversation about it and talk about it. It's not going to be, we get to the end of the annual performance period, and then you're finally finding out you think you're doing a great job. Then it's like, you're substandard, right? So I really think putting all that up front would really help with all of that, because that would scare someone if they're not willing to do that. And you say, hey, I expect you to be a good person, show up on time, look the part, like all these fun things, right? I really think that would if they'd probably be like, I don't know, this guy might be a little intense for me, right? That might be a little too much. And that'd be perfect. That would work exactly the way I'd want it to.
I think any interview should be an exchange of that conversation. Like, employees should be really clear when they start with you. Like, this is our expectation. This is, is that something that you feel like you can meet? are you up for the challenge? Are you, blah, blah, blah. That should absolutely, you're right, should be right up front, interview time. This is how I am an intense person. So, everything I do is intense and I'm intense, and they'll be like, you know what, I had a bad experience with an intense person. So I'm gonna like, peace out. But they might be like, I love that, I like that. Having that, the guidelines, I know where my guardrails are, I know what I can do, and then they'll thrive in it, right? But the other side to that is, if you set up an expectation in an interview that these are the rules and these are my expectations, you sure as hell better make sure that when they enter that work group, all of those staff members are meeting that expectation, because it will discredit you. So if you go into an interview and you're intense and you're like, let me break this down for you, like this is how it is, and then they walk in and your employees are doing stuff on the side and are not meeting that expectation and could care less about it, and they're just like whoop de doop de doo, that person is, you're gonna be completely discredited with them. They're gonna be like, yeah, he's just a blowhard. So culture is like, employee culture is the cat's meow when it comes to success. If your employees are not actually working the culture you want them to work, and that's where you focus, is do my employees, if I were to walk into your employee group, right, and I were just to work with them, would I be able to walk out and tell you what the expectations are that you've set on your employees clearly, and would they actually match what you have made for them? If a stranger walks into an employee group and works inside of your culture for a day, they should be able to tell without like going, okay, what are the expectations? I should be able to see what the expectations are and become able to come to the management and say, these are the expectations that your employees have, that you have set for your employees. Would they reflect what you actually have set? I don't know, because I've done that, but I'm just saying that's a really good way to know what your actual employee culture is. Asking new hires too. I love asking new hires after they've started a couple months later. So, what don't we do well? Man, it makes them real uncomfortable, but it's great. It's great feedback. If you can create a relationship where your new hires are willing to tell you what you don't do well, that's gold. Because your employees aren't going to tell you. They're like they don't work very hard. Your employees aren't going to go, honestly, we just don't work hard enough. If you could just make that, that'd be great.
What about how do you prevent employees from having a lot of distractions, like social media use and things like that?
What do you guys do?
I can tell you what I do is and they can tell you I'm very production based. I don't care if you work there 9 to 5, whatever. Here's, let's say, a deal, right?
Yeah.
We do commercial editing. Here's a deal. Get it done.
Yeah.
There's obviously a certain timeline where I'm going to be like, why is this taking so long?
Sure.
Right, if we have everything, but they know, just get it done. I don't care if they go out to lunch or they go do whatever, they take off early. If they are getting their work done, then I'm completely 100% okay with it. So that's how I do it. I don't believe in we don't work to time, we work to standard.
Right.
So to me, by doing that and getting rid of that 9 to 5 garbage is the way to do that.
Sure.
Because I can sit there from 9 to 5 and play on Facebook the whole time. I didn't do anything. Or I could have worked really hard for 2 hours and got 3 things done, right? Which one would you rather see?
Yeah.
Right?
Is your staff salaried or hourly?
Salary, well, half. It's like half and half, basically.
Is the same standard set for your hourly employees?
Yes. Yeah. Would you say so? Yes.
So if you're if you're efficient and you can do your job in half the amount of time, sweet, that's great. Do your thing, right? If it takes you all day to do your job, great, sweet.
And I will say, just coming from, I've worked in construction a lot longer than I have worked in finance, so there is different expectations, especially with the 9 to 5. In 9 to 5, where we're working, I can be halted in a project to where I can't move until I get information or documents needed from someone. Rather, when I was working in construction, you have a project that is going to take you a whole month to do. So if I'm like halted, there is a very good reason why I'm halted in construction. It's not just because, I needed to take an extra 30 minutes here just because, don't feel like it or anything like that. Like it is, that production is a little bit different because over there, when you're building a house, it's like you can't just stop midpoint because wall's gonna fall down or something like that. So you over there, you have more things to do every minute rather than when you're working, I guess, working across with people like that. That's a little bit different. So maybe it's easier to justify having distractions rather than over there.
Yeah. Because you guys aren't in, I'm sorry, you guys aren't in like an office type environment. Do you guys have that problem?
Well, I have both. I have an office also.
Oh, okay.
So my technicians are out in the field. I'm very lenient that way. If they're done with the job, usually I let them take the van, and as long as they're close by and can get to their next job on time, they can go do something else for a little while. You know, if they're going to be off the clock too long, I ask them to clock off. For the most part, I'm pretty flexible that way. Obviously, my office workers, I have clients that are going to call at any given time, and so they're pretty well stuck there.
Right. And do you have any problem with them surfing around until they're
Not too much, and we've kind of let that up also. You know, I've told a lot of my office workers, you know, if you have school or something else and there's nothing going on, as long as the company comes first, the phones come first, that's what I care about. If it's a lull and you want to visit with the other office workers or do some homework or whatever, I'm totally cool with that.
Well, yeah, in my field, I don't really have that. There's downtimes too, so automotive repair. So very much the same case. We have expectations. You start off hourly to where we feel we do it about a year, then you're gonna go flat rate.
Yeah.
We monitor your productivity. So I mean, we're waiting for parts, we're waiting for stuff, and like we're not gonna hound you if you're on your thing. I'm gonna pay you, you're fine because you just did a lot of hard work here for a little bit, you know. But if and that's how it is, you got a flat rate 8-hour job and you can meticulously get that thing with quality done in 4 hours, I'm still paying you 8 because that's what the clock time is. Now, if you want to go ahead and be more productive and stay and get another vehicle in and then make 12, that's on you. Or if you got your 8-hour day in and it's 4, then fine, then you can go ahead and go. I leave that alone. It just depends on that. So it's a little bit different, but it's a productivity. You have to be productive and get your work done, especially once you turn flat rate, because once you turn flat rate, that's on you. If you're spending 10 hours on a job that it really takes you 2, then or vice versa, you're kicking yourself in the butt on your pay, and
Sorts itself out.
it's you're gonna realize that, okay, I need to start put down any phones or anything like that. But no, it's not in my industry. It's not too much of an issue.
Do you have that in real estate?
Well, real estate, especially in residential, I don't do residential, I just do commercial, so I usually work a 9 to 5 type of hours. But in residential, you're kind of on the clock all the time because your clients want you to be available in the evening and weekends to show them houses because they're not at work. And so I did residential for a small period of time. That was one reason that I didn't like it.
You're like, and then I went commercial.
Yes. So, you can kind of like work your daytime schedule to be able to fit in those distracting things, like maybe family needs or appointments or whatever, because you're going to be working the evening and the weekends. So
You can rationalize it.
Right.
Yeah. I honestly, because I also think that it's productivity based, right? This might be controversial, but I don't think that social media distraction is really the problem. And I don't think it's a problem, generally speaking. I think that it's a perception that people have. And so they think if someone's on their phone and is there an addiction factor? Absolutely. I mean, that happens. Absolutely, sure, whatever. But, I've watched people get terminated purely because they were on their phone. Most productive person in the group. But it was because they were on their phone. And it just seems like we're focusing on the perception of what that means. It means that they are taking advantage of the company and they're not being more productive. They're not doing more. They could be doing more. Well, if they're the ones that are doing everything, And, you know, this person has 5 widgets to do, and this person has 5 widgets to do, and this person has 5 widgets to do, and this person gets their 5 widgets done in half the time, they're penalized for it. Because they're like, I'm done with my 5 widgets. Well, then you should have asked for 5 more. Well, hold on a second. I'm getting paid the same thing that this 5 widgets is getting paid. Why? You know, so it's very much along with what you're saying. But I think it's perception. I will say I'm super anti-open floor plans for offices. I think when we're talking about distraction factors, it's not social media that's a distraction. It's all the other people in the room that's a distraction, which is like what we're talking about.
Yes.
I think the open work plan, which was designed to appease the millennial, you know, because we're all about collaboration and team collaboration. That's all we want to do. So they're like, oh, to appease them, well, we're going to put them in cubicles so then they can just collaborate all day long. That is literally why open floor plans happen. Killed productivity in the workplace, killed it, because it takes our brain psychologically so much to get focused on something. It is very hard our brains are lazy, they don't want to work harder than they have to. So if you're actually able to zone in and work on something, you're in a freaking queue. Someone's gonna start talking about something, someone's gonna start talking to you, someone else's phone's gonna ring, you're gonna like not mean to, but you're totally listening on like the tea that's being spilled over here, and you are completely not focused. And then you go, oh crap, where was I? Shoot, where was I? I mean, it kills productivity.
Yes.
Right?
So here I got a great example of this, right?
Yeah.
So I worked at Wells before COVID happened.
Yeah.
Wells, you know, basically all of Wells worked from home 2 years. That is by far the most productive I have ever been. The office was productive. Everything. You know why? I have my office in my house. No one bothers me because they know I'm working,
Yeah.
and it's, you know, like my wife was there, my son
Yeah.
was there, but they just do their thing. I talk to them all the time, so whatever. And literally, I just sat there and I could nerd out as hard as humanly possible on this computer. And I mean, and I was getting stuff done like this.
Yes.
Now ask them. I'm a chatty Cathy. I like people. I like sitting there and talking to people, right? Like in the end, however, sometimes I do need to sit down. It's the hardest thing in the world for me.
It is.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I've actually found the, you know, work from home thing to be amazing. Like absolutely amazing when you're just trying to get one little project done or some type of memo typed up or whatever.
I think to close on what you were saying and then to talk about work from home, but if someone is concerned about productivity with regards to social media distraction and stuff, my advice always is look at the employee and see if they're doing their work. Don't get so wrapped up in how the perception that they must not be working because they're on social media. And if they are, ask them, would you like more work? Like, would you like to do a special project? I'm noticing that you're getting your work done. It looks great. Attaboy, like that's awesome. Would you like another project to work on? You know, we have some internal training program. Would you, I just want to let you know that if you get your work done and you do this internal training program, like this is how it benefits you. So just want to make sure you have options. Because they might just be like, I'm done, so I'm just gonna and zone out. But if you're noticing it, don't get so sucked up in the perception of what that must mean. Find out why if they're doing their job really good, and they're doing their job really well. See if they're probably bored and probably would like to do something else, and you might just not be challenging enough for them. Ask them if they want to do more. They probably don't want to do the same 9 to 5 job, but a special project. Hey, we have these old files. Do you want to do it on your downtime? They'll probably be like, yeah, sure, yeah, we'll go do that. Because now if they're distracted and there's a productivity issue, don't get so sucked up in the distraction, get sucked up in the productivity issue. It will resolve itself, right? If you stay on course and say, whatever, you're on Facebook, whatever. It's probably not that, it's TikTok, so whatever, you're on TikTok. Right? Say, hey, you're supposed to get these 5 widgets done. You're the only person here not getting your 5 widgets done. What do we need to do to get you to get your 5 widgets done? and then say, I've noticed that you do spend a lot of time on TikTok. Would it make sense for you to maybe leave your phone in your car? Because I know I love TikTok. I don't really, but I love TikTok, that kind of thing. So focus on the problem. It's not the distraction, it's the problem. Like the productivity is the issue. So anyway, work from home, absolutely. I work with a lot of companies, obviously, who are dealing with the return to work. Everybody's coming back. But I completely agree with you. Working from home for so many people actually made them a lot more productive, especially your cubicle people. They probably get a lot more. But what's so funny is that I've seen this weird perception that meant because they were not online all the time, they weren't getting their work done. Like, it's because they work from home, they're not working as hard, right? They're not working as hard because they're only online for 6 hours, and before they were having to do 3 hours of overtime every day. And I've asked them, are they getting their job done? Well, yeah, but like they're only online for 6 hours. It's because they're at home and they don't have you talking to them for 20 minutes. I'm horrible at that. Like, when I had a staff, I'd have to be like, you guys have got to tell me to just shut up and go to my office because I will just chat. How was your weekend? Let's sit here for like 3 hours. I've done this. Distract my entire staff for 3 hours. Let's problem solve this bad boy. 3 hours. And then they're like, okay, Maggie, wrap it up. Yeah, I'm really bad at it. But that's what happened. People's productivity went up, but the higher ups perceived it as that they weren't working as hard because they just weren't logged in as many hours, and it's crazy.
And it's completely wrong. So I've had people, and I've actually told you guys this story before, but I had a guy on my team, and I'm telling you, he's like one of those people that works like 12 hours a day and works some Saturdays and even like a little bit on Sundays and whatever, but he was always very slow to get things done. Great, so he's working 12 hours a day, but he takes longer than everyone else to get things done. And he's not on social media, he's not anything.
Yeah.
He's just inefficient with time management, right? So he has a hard time, like an email that could have been put in this, and I'm sure everyone's seen this before, it's like 5 paragraphs long, right? And you're like, I got the point with the first sentence, man. You didn't need to waste an hour doing that. So it's kind of stuff like that, and I've seen my old boss during this time, he would actually like, during calls and things like that, like praise him because he's like, oh, I saw them working at this, sent me an email at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, if I was the manager, I'd be like, man, what is going on? Like, what am I like giving you too much time, and or like am I giving you too much work that's eating up your time, or like what's going on? How can we make you more efficient? And because you shouldn't be doing this. But he praised it instead, basically saying everyone else who's getting their stuff done quicker, it's like, okay, I guess I'll just move my mouse around. I can do that. Connected to the fan,
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's and that's exactly right. It's like, what's really the end state? That's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
This person's getting their job done, and it's so logical. It's ridiculous. But what's before millennials? The boomer, is that right?
Not Xers.
X is it X?
But it's okay because nobody cares
I don't
about
know.
that generation. Pop over to the boomers.
Yeah, but it's like that kind of that X, that boomer generation. Like that's how they see it because that's how they were taught. And it's like you have to be there 9 to 5. And it's like, well, who cares?
Yeah.
Who actually cares? Like this arbitrary time you made up. The point is to get the job done.
How do you get somebody to slow down?
Right.
Yeah,
Because I have a salaried employee that she feels like she's got to be on all the time. And I'm like, why are you on the clock at 9 o'clock? I don't care. Get your stuff done. That's all I care about. But it's, all the time. It's 9 o'clock at night. What are you doing?
I had the same thing. I had an employee who's a boomer, and when he started, he's a salaried employee, and I'm like, I understand you're a salaried employee, but you work these hours, and my expectation is that you only work these hours because we're in IT. There will come a day where you will have to work 24 hours in a day. There will come a day where something breaks, and we're going to need you to work some long hauls. So that's what happens in IT. It just happens, right? So I don't want you to be working 16-hour days, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm broken, and now you're working, you're working 24 or whatever. And he refused. Like, I actually had to get someone else involved.
Oh, wow.
Refused to do it. And I don't know what that, I don't have an answer to that.
Right.
Like, I don't know why you just stop. I mean, it's just don't do it. And it's just this weird, I think it's just we are people who are addicted to being busy. And busy means important. And that's what the Harvard Business Review just actually did a very, very good article on this. But Americans in general, we set how important you are to how busy you are. If you're a busy person, then you must be an important person, period. Like, I gotta tell you, I'm crazy judgmental on people's emails. And let me tell you, if I can see somebody's, and they'll say, I'm like, oh my gosh, you have 1,000 emails in your inbox. What the hell? And they were like, oh, I'm busy. I'm like, no, you're inefficient. Someone's busy, they're inefficient. But we just have this thought that it's just like this guy. Like, if you're busy, you're important. We all love that whole like, oh, I gotta take this call. Because no, you don't. No, you don't. The person who just called you about something, it can wait. It can wait.
Yes. Why is everything a fire?
Why? But it's just about me being able to excuse myself for, I just want you to know that I'm so important that someone would call me and I need to get up and leave to take that call. And it's stupid. It's not necessary. It's like, it's not. Unless you literally have a job that if you don't pick up the phone, something could crash and burn. You can wait until the end of whatever it is that you're doing. But we're obsessed with it.
Yeah. I'm not.
Yeah. I don't really have a good answer for that. I don't have an answer for this addiction to being busy, but we are. We're very, especially if we want to feel powerful, like we are important. We are important, and I can show you that I'm important because my phone is constantly ringing. My inbox is filled with reports that I get, even though I never look at any of them. They're auto-generated, but look how important I am. I know, because I'm the one that like schedules those reports. I'm like, this person's never gonna open up this report. But I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. I think that it's unfortunate, but it is how that person feels important. So, I mean, you could do two things. You could hold them accountable and say, you will not do this.
Right.
But it seems like weird. Like, don't work hard, damn it. Like, it just seems like such a weird thing. I'm going to hold you accountable for working really hard. Like, it just seems like so wrong. I think the only other thing is just to express that that is not how we value your time. But if that's how that person feels important, then as long as they're not damaging anything, they're not doing anything that is negatively affecting the company, let them ride that out until they figure
Yeah, I think just let
they
them
mature
know.
enough to know.
Again, as long as the productivity is there, I don't care.
Yeah, like
So you want to work 13 hours, that's fine. I mean, I'd probably be like, I don't know why you're doing that, but
yeah,
do you,
I mean,
right?
like,
Yeah.
like, if that's what makes you feel
You know
important,
that's not the expectation
yeah,
here.
just make sure they always know that's not the expectation. We don't want that out of you. We don't want that out of you. You know. The gentleman I had to deal with that, I was transitioning out of that position, so I kind of handed that problem off to somebody else. Like, and he even said to me when we had that, he goes, "That's very hard for me because I come from an environment where the more time you put in shows your dedication and your loyalty." And I said, "It makes you look inefficient. I want to know why. Why is it taking you 20 hours to develop something that another person can develop in 10. Why is that? Because that's how that looks. It's taking you 20 hours, it's taking this guy 10 hours. Like, that's how it's perceived. But frankly, if they're doing a good job and they're not detrimental to the company and they're not asking for more money, like, do it. It's weird though.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, it's weird.
I've had all those conversations.
Yeah.
Get your stuff done. I've given you a lot of freedom for your specific job because there's there's lots of ability for her to move around and she's on the marketing side. So
Yeah.
And then 9 o'clock at night, she's logged in doing something. Okay.
When I was a single mom, I would log in and I worked in a lot, and I would, I had too many employees than one person could have handled anyway successfully. And I had this very pivotal moment in my career where I realized I was a really crappy boss. And so I had decided I was not going to be a crappy boss anymore. And so I became way more employee focused, but I would spend my whole work day invested in my employees. Well, we're all working managers, right? So we all had work we still had to do. But I could have probably gotten it done because I would stand out talking to my employees all day. But it was just because at 9 o'clock at night, it was quiet in my house, quiet in my head. I was able to focus. I didn't have people bugging me, So it might just be the best place and time for her to concentrate on a thing, and she had a spark of inspiration and started writing an email. I have done it. So, yeah. So.
How many employees is too many employees? For a manager?
How much time should a manager spend with their employee, one-on-one with their employee a week?
Mine don't spend a whole bunch of time.
But how much time should a manager spend with their employee? So I would honestly say to have a really healthy relationship with your employees, and everyone's going to be like, oh crap, I would say probably 1-to-5 ratio.
1 with, 5 without?
One manager to 5 employees.
Oh, okay, I got you.
And I'll tell you why, because I think that we have 40 hours of work a week, if we're working 40 hours a week. Okay, realistically, most people, if they work 40 hours, they really only work 36. Because all the other times it's coffee, it's, I forgot to go out to go grab something. It's, conversation in the hallway. It eats up crazy amounts of time. It just does. You don't realize it, but they average, they say about 36 hours is productive work a week. So we're all working managers. Very rarely do you have a manager position whose sole job is the development and productivity of their employees. That doesn't happen anymore. That died many, many a year ago, around the 60s. So we have working managers now. So let's just say you spend an hour a week with your employee. An hour a week. So I'm going to sit down with you for 1 hour and be like, hey, how's it going? How's your projects? What's going on? How's the family? All that 1 hour a week, one-on-one time. That means that you only have 31 hours to get your work done, which is not actually that a lot of time. If you expand past that, just think about 1 hour a week. If you give an employer 10 employees, they've got 26 hours of work to get done. The more employees, so something's gonna give. So you have probably 30 hours of work. I have to produce something work easily, right? Easily 30 hours of work. Your bosses aren't paying attention to the time you spend with your employees. They only care about the product that you're giving them. So what ends up happening is then you cut back on your time with your employees. You cut, and then eventually you're spending 15 minutes a week one-on-one with each employee because that's all you can give, or you're working over, whatever. I think a 1-to-5 ratio is healthy if your end result is to have long-standing trust, loyalty, and development of your employees. If you're a working manager, which you probably are. But that's not the reality. Most people have more than 5 subordinates. That's pretty common because, how many subordinates do you have?
6.
6. And do you guys have subordinates or? No. And you have how many?
Well, I'm the head honcho. No,
I know.
My husband has 3 underneath.
3 under him, yeah. So the bigger, right, the more and more people you add to that, the more and more it becomes just really diluted work with your staff. So you have people like in fast food restaurants, you've got 1 manager and 20 staff. It's impractical, to say the least. At my highest, I had 23 direct reports underneath me, which is the most horrible thing in the entire world. That was just because I couldn't hire a supervisor, so it all rolls up at that point. But yeah, so I would say when you're talking about how many people you should have, I could not imagine having an employer-employee relationship with less than 1 hour of concentrated work, of concentrated time with each employee. So just back that up. It all depends on how much work you have to get done. If you only have to dot and I, I'm just signing papers all day, then maybe you can have more employees. It all just depends. But that's how, when I said, no one should ever be surprised when they get terminated, it's done because you should be meeting with your employees so regularly that they know exactly, this week I know exactly what my performance is because I'm talking to them every week. And reviews, that review should be done every week, constantly reviewed. There should be never a need for an annual review because it's happening every week. You know exactly where they are. I think annual reviews all. So. Anyway.
Well, we better wrap it up to let everybody get back to their day. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Thanks.